Hey everyone, thank you for joining the conversation tonight. Um, I hope that everyone had a safe and productive week so far. And Memorial Weekend is upon us, so I hope that everyone is, preparing to take some time with their families, have some fun, kind of, let loose a little bit and unwind from a lot of the things that we are seeing happening within the country today, and a lot of this stuff that we see can be very disheartening. So it is good sometimes to just unwind and enjoy time with our families, relax, blow off some steam, and, just enjoy ourselves. I know I most certainly plan to be doing that this weekend. Where I am, I'm surrounded by beaches, so I'm pretty sure I will end up at one of them unwinding and just, letting go of a lot of the things that I see that are very troublesome and worrisome to me at times. But, thank God that I have a loving family that I'm able to spend time with, and, I can rejuvenate myself. Hey, Miss Arquay, thank you for joining the conversation tonight. And excuse me, what I really want to touch on tonight is something that has been really heavy in my mind and my heart, that I'm seeing happening within our community. And I feel that it's really time for us to take into serious consideration having a code of conduct for how we conduct ourselves just on a day-to-day basis, how we interact with one another, the things that we value within our community, and just having a different perspective and a different outlook on some things that I feel that some of us may or may not be aware that we are doing. And self-assessment is very, very necessary because, as I always say, we have a lot of, outside forces that already are working overtime to cause confusion, division, and just destruction within our community because, that is how they stay miles and miles ahead of us. And, I feel as if some of the things that, some of the people within our community are engaging in, it's very, very problematic. And, it's causing a rift in society. And ultimately, it is destroying the lives of several people within the community. And I feel that there are some things that we can do in the short term that can solve some of these problems immediately because, long term, there's lots of things that we have to do. And, in order for us to be able to achieve those things, it is going to take, a lot of hard work. It's going to take a lot of effort. And it's going to take, you know, um, a substantial amount of time for us to get to where it is that we want to be in certain regards. But as far as we, carry ourselves on a day to day basis and how we interact with one another, I feel that it's something that we can work on in the short term, and it's something that we can begin to do immediately to improve the quality of life for ourselves within our community. And there's four key things that I really want to talk about with everyone tonight. And those four key things that I think that we can start working on in the short term in order to improve our situation. um, the first thing is, for some of us, not all, and I'm pretty sure not any of us who may be in this chat room do this, but there's someone within our family or just within our circle or whoever we associate with and communicate with, you know, they may be engaging in these types of behaviors. And I think that we really need to call these things out. To a certain extent, we need to demonize these behaviors, because what happens is when we begin to normalize certain things, then it becomes a part of the culture, and ultimately it spills out into society. And that is why we see a lot of the degradation that we see occurring, within our neighborhoods, and happening all around us. And I personally feel that there's things that we can do to combat this and improve it. And something that I see a lot of people doing, far too much, in my opinion, is these four key things. And the first one is, I see a lot of people, just promoting thug culture, just way too much, for my liking. And to an extent that I feel that is very, very damaging. Another thing is, engaging in predictive behaviors. And what I mean by predictive behaviors is engaging in things that, the power structure basically wants us to do in order to trap us and put us in situations that are very damaging to ourselves and our families. Another thing is money worship. Now, I know we all need money to sustain ourselves. And I'm not demonizing anyone having money, because obviously we need money to take care of ourselves. But a lot of people are getting into some really, really bad situations, all because of, this over, just this overreach and this overly worshiping of money. And, it gets to the point where people are being hurt and killed, all for the love of money. And I think that that's something that we really need to, look into and evaluate ourselves, and really ask ourselves, why is it that some of us are so heavily into money worship within the community, to the extent that we will step on the backs of our brothers and our sisters, all in the name of money. The last thing, and I've spoken about this before, and this is something that is one of my biggest pet peeves: the public bashing and shaming that we're doing to each other on social media, even within the YouTube community, with between content creators. A lot of the bickering and just the downright mean and vicious things that are being spewed against one another is very, very troubling, and is very damaging to everyone that is, watching and engaging and somewhat cheering this on, because they find it to be entertaining, but ultimately it's very damaging, and it has lasting effects on the community. And I think that that's something that a lot of us are not taking into consideration, because everybody likes a little bit of drama. It's just human nature. But to the extent that we're engaging in it, it is saturating the community, and it is, overpowering more positive things that we could be doing when interacting with one another. Now, I want to backtrack and go down the list and give my take on what it is I think that we can do to, kind of halt some of these destructive behaviors that we're engaging in. And the first thing, with the glorification of thug culture, I think that this one is probably the most damaging of them all. And the reason being is because a lot of this glorification of the culture is, being perpetuated in the music. And, with the music, you have the ears and the minds of the youth. And that is, to me, in my opinion, that is one of the main reasons that we see a lot of the things that are going on, within society. because this constant pushing of, making it something good to identify yourself as a thug, when a thug is someone who is a degenerate, someone who is a savage, someone who is, immoral, all these bad things. And we, for some reason, especially a lot of the recording artists, for some reason, they think that this is something that it should be glorified and something that they should make a living doing. Now, I'm not here trying to preach a sermon to anyone, because I know everybody likes to be entertained. But at what point do we, take an honest assessment and say to ourselves, a lot of this stuff is very, very damaging, regardless of artistic expression or whatever. And I really don't like to impede on people's artistic, the rights for the right to artistic expression. I don't like to impede on that. But it comes to a point where, when you're sitting back and you can see the destruction that is being caused by the messages that you are putting out into the community, and that doesn't bother you, that is something that is very, very, is very troubling and is very problematic. And the reason for that is because, as I stated before, with a lot of this music that is being played on our radio stations, the youth is listening to this stuff nonstop. And, although people may say, well, it's just entertainment, the youth in many ways don't see it that way. And they're using it as a soundtrack to go out there and engage in very, very destructive behaviors. And the thing that is most troubling to me is that, when I listen to some of these other radio stations, and, I hate to do these constant comparisons between our communities and other communities, but I want to draw this parallel because it goes into, another point about the predictive programming. When these record executives allow these young men and young women to put out albums where they are talking about killing one another, hurting one another, and doing very damaging things to each other, when you turn over to the radio stations that, they want a different message to be displayed on, you don't hear this stuff. And it's not that children in other communities don't listen to this music, but it is not saturating the airwaves in their community the way that it is saturating the airwaves in our community. And, everyone plays a part in this, because we're allowing too much of this stuff to get out there. And, there's something that we can do about this. And I feel that we need to be, putting a little bit more pressure on the radio stations, on the record labels, and on the community in general, with the individuals that think it's okay to constantly, nonstop promote this thug life, thug culture to the youth. And sadly enough, even to, people who is at an age where they should understand that they don't need to be promoting and propagating this thug culture within the community. Because when you think about it, we just have to be honest with the fact that a lot of these messages that are being put out there are being embedded into the psyches of people. And, a lot of times, people say they don't understand why it is that certain things are going on. But when you have something that is constantly saturating your mind over and over and over again, eventually you're going to gravitate toward it to the point where it's almost like a drug, and you constantly and consistently need that adrenaline rush by pumping these messages into your mind. We need to, as I said before, in some ways, we need to be demonizing these behaviors. We need to, make it a point to say that this is not who we are. This is not what we are. And this does not represent our communities. Because, for the most part, like I said, I know there's a lot of us that don't engage in this, on a consistent basis to the point where it's just extremely damaging. But we have to think about the percentage of people within our community that live by this, as a code, as a way of life. And that does not need to be the code for our community. The code for our community needs to be that, basically who we are, who we are as a people innately. Innately, we're not savage people. Innately, we're not violent people. Innately, we're not immoral people. So for us to be propagating that and putting it out there to the mainstream that we're thugs, that we're willing to kill each other at a moment's notice, is very troubling. And like I said, it's something that we need to have a critical assessment of, and we need to say to ourselves, it's time for us to combat some of these messages, because truth be told, people enjoyed music for many, many generations without this consistent saturation of violence, over sexualizing, just savage behavior. People enjoyed music for many, many, many generations without all the toxic messages being pushed out there. And, I know some people are going to say that the parents need to teach their children that this is just entertainment and that they don't need to take these things seriously. But you have to understand that a parent can only do so much, because when your child is away from you, when your child is with their friends or they're just out within the community, there are so many influences out there that, you know, it's very, very hard for them to not crumble under the pressure of wanting to fit in to the group. And that's something that we just have to be honest about. So shifting the culture and, making other things, the face of our community, I feel is something that we could do within the short term to see a turnaround and a lot of the things that we're seeing going on within the community. Like I said, when you think about what a thug is, even for the people who are self-professed thugs, when you think about what a thug is that really the way you see yourself? I think that's something that people who think it's okay to glorify this and make it seem like it's something normal for us, I think they really need to take a clear assessment of what it means to be a thug and really say to themselves, am I all these awful things? Is this something that I want to label myself as? Because truth be told, when people from other communities say this, a lot of times people get upset. And I'm not one of those people that like to say, okay, well, if we don't want to be called this or that by other communities, then we need to do this. No, because to some regard, some people in other communities, they're going to do that regardless. But, it is valid to a certain extent that it's very, very hard to explain why we're so upset about being labeled as certain things, and we're turning around and then another breath and we're glorifying this within the culture. That's something that we need to stop doing. It's not going to be an overnight process, but I feel like if we begin to work on these things little by little, more and more every day, shifting the culture and putting positivity at the forefront of the community as a way of life for ourselves, we will begin to see instant changes within the community. Like I said before, it's very troubling to me that you'll listen to a song or you'll just listen to someone speaking out in public, and it's nothing for them to it's so easy for them. It comes with ease for them to say that they will physically harm another Black person. They'll get a gun and shoot another Black person at a moment's notice, and that's something that feels very normal. And for the life of me, I really don't understand how we have allowed for this to go so far that we feel that it is okay for us to take someone's life like it's no big deal. And this is too many of our younger people within the community with this mentality. And personally, it is up to us to shift that culture. The people that have the influence, the people that these youth are looking up to, which in many ways are the entertainers or the people in the community who are perceived to live a certain lifestyle that is, something that is admirable to the youth. I personally feel that these people need to take the lead in shifting the culture and letting the youth know that there is a better way to live. There's a better way to present yourself. There's a better way for you to treat your brothers and sisters within the community. Because this glorification of this degenerate behavior and this thug culture, it does not stop unless we make it stop. It needs to get to the point that if someone hears those types of lyrics, they're going to brush them off because they know that is not who we are and what we are as a people. And, that's pretty much what I wanted to touch on with that first point. The glorification of thug culture within our communities, it is extremely problematic. It's something that has ballooned into something that is at the forefront of the community. And I don't want that to be something that is pushed out there for the world to see because, even if there's a situation where one of our young men don't engage in those behaviors, just by being associated with the community, it puts them in danger because, there's people that will use that as an excuse to label our young men and will use that as a reason to harm them. So that's something that we really need to take into consideration. And it's something that we need to begin to shift. This is something that we can do in the short term. It doesn't even require that much work. It's just about a change of mindset. Now, the next thing that I wanted to touch on is predictive behaviors. And this kind of ties in with the thug culture. I was watching another broadcast on Cynthia G's channel, and there was a panel discussion where they were talking about predictive behaviors. And I felt like this was a very, very good conversation. And what I mean by predictive behaviors is things that are causing strife within the community by, a lot of outside influences. But, these things are being pushed within the community, somewhat of like, an experiment to see if we're going to take the bait. And sadly enough, there's a good number of us that are taking the bait. As I said before, there are people, unfortunately, that, they have dedicated an entire system to targeting us, to destroying us. So engaging in the behaviors that will get us into certain situations that people are counting on us to get into, that has to stop. And this, as I was saying, this glorification of the culture is the main predictive behavior that they are counting on for us to be engaging in, and specifically our young men. They are counting on our young men to not behave well. They are counting on our young men to be violent with one another. They are counting on our young men to engage in criminal activity. They are counting on our young men to be destructive. And, unfortunately, as I was saying, there is a lot of young men within the community that have bought into the lie that they are a certain thing. And once they perceive themselves as such, they engage in the behaviors of that thing in which they proclaim to be. Meanwhile, they're unaware in some cases that, there was a plan in place all along for them to fall into the trap and engage in the behaviors that are going to cause them to be in a situation where their life is completely ruined. As we can see, our young men, unfortunately, are filling up the jails, are filling up the prisons, are filling up the juvenile detention centers. And it is because, we have to do a better job at explaining to them all these traps that have been put in place, that people that make a living off of them failing are just sitting and waiting in the wings for them to engage in. And this particular task is not an easy one, because 9 times out of 10, a person such as myself, it may be kind of difficult for me to get through to a young man. But there's a lot of men within the community that I feel, have a certain level of influence that could step up to the plate. And also, some of the men within the community, you guys need to do an evaluation of how you're living and see if that is the best way to present yourself in society. Because even if you don't want to admit it, the youth are looking at you. The youth are looking at the people who they perceive to be, in certain positions that they may want to be in, or they look at them for whatever reason they may be paying attention to you. You never know. So, the question is, are you engaging in behaviors that are, going to benefit them in a positive way? Or are you engaging in behaviors that are going to influence them to do something negative that will ultimately end up, and them being involved in something that is destructive and that is going to cause them to be in a situation that they may not be able to get out of. And unfortunately, that can lead to a life in prison or even death. So that's something that we definitely need to take into consideration. And as I said before, these are things that we can do within the short term that really does not require much, but just an assessment and a change of mindset. This is, you know, this is something that we can do. If we really want to see change within society, you know, this is something that we can do for ourselves to make a better way of life. Because as I was saying before, there are so many outside influences that already have their plans in place for us, things that they want to see us do that will lead to our demise. And, in no way, shape, or form should we be helping them destroy us. It's very self-destructive and it's very counterproductive for us to be inflicting pain upon ourselves, especially when we have all these outside attacks and, people that go out of their way to deliberately harm us. It's very, it's very counterproductive for us to be engaging in these things. Another thing that, I wanted to touch on as far as the predictive behaviors and also tying into the thug culture is one thing that I've been noticing among a lot of the young ladies in society is that a lot of the young ladies are starting to talk about causing physical harm toward one another in the form of gun violence as well. I was listening to a song, and one of the rappers in the song, she said that she keeps a gun because she's not fighting with anybody. And that really struck me because I'm like, is this where we're headed? Is this where our young ladies are headed in society, where they're talking about getting guns and shooting each other? Is this really what we're doing? So, that's why I said a lot of this music, it may sound good, but we really have to be honest about the lyrics and what is being pushed out there into the minds of the youth. We cannot expect for things to change if we're not willing to do a self-assessment and have some accountability for some of the things that we are allowing to go on within our community. And the next thing that I wanted to briefly touch on was the money worship. And this comes in a lot of different forms. Nowadays it's very, very popular for people to be talking about chasing the bag and all these things. And, like I said before, there's nothing wrong with wanting to take care of yourself. There's nothing wrong with wanting to be successful. There's nothing wrong with wanting to, acquire the means to be able to sustain a lifestyle that you are comfortable with. But at what point do we understand that there is a very, very fine line between wanting to be successful and wanting to acquire, financial stability, and then just outright being vicious and, crazy about money? I continue to tie this into a lot of the music that we listen to, because a lot of this is being perpetuated through the entertainment industry, and not just in music, but within many different forms of entertainment. The whole goal a lot of times is to basically make you feel like if you're not holding a stack of money, then you're worthless. And that is very, very destructive, and it's very problematic in the sense that it makes people want to chase the dangling carrot. And a lot of people are putting themselves in some very, very dangerous situations, all for, just to be able to acquire money. And we need to think about the things that are far more important, than money, like a peace of mind, like our safety, like our health, our families. These are all things that should be, far more important to us than acquiring and amassing large sums of money. And as I was stating, I'm not shaming anyone for wanting to be successful or wealthy, but there's a way to go about doing that to the point where you don't lose yourself and you don't lose your mind, all in the quest to acquire money. A lot of times, I see, especially here on social media, people say silly things like money over everything. And I'm just thinking to myself, what good is it going to do you to have money if you have a quality of life that isn't worth anything? Money can only do so much. And money cannot give you morals, it cannot give you integrity. There's so many things that money cannot do. And this worship of money, it is causing many, many problems within the community. And I personally feel that we need to shift the narrative. And it's okay to have money. I'm not saying that we need to demonize people wanting to be successful, but we need to put the message out there that we're not going to step on each other's backs, all in the name of acquiring money. We're not going to do destructive things to each other, all in the name of acquiring money. Because ultimately, once we put those things out there, it is hard to scale them back. Once we saturate the culture with certain things, it's very hard to undo these particular mindsets once people begin to see this as the way of life. And that's why I said we need to shift the narrative. We need to shift the narrative as far as how we are going to conduct ourselves on a day-to-day basis, because repetition is the way to overturn the destructive things that are occurring within society. And, you know, the last thing that I wanted to touch on was the public bashing. And I spoke on this before. And I feel like I need to touch on it again because since I've spoken on it the last time, you know, I really don't see any real improvements in the way that we are handling each other on these public platforms and these social media outlets. You know, I personally feel that if there is something that you have a difference with someone about, there's many ways you can go about communicating with that person before immediately jumping on social media and spreading hurtful and harmful rhetoric about, you know, a particular group. As I was saying before, I see a lot of these male YouTubers get up here and they create entire platforms based on humiliating and shaming Black women. And you see it coming from Black women as well. But, you know, in my observation, it has been way more, you know, vast among the male YouTube community. And, you know, people don't understand that when you're a YouTube influencer, you have a lot of, you know, you have a lot of influence over people. You can shift a person's entire mindset. And, you know, there's a lot of these guys up here on YouTube that say these hurtful and harmful things about the women in the community. And, you know, I don't know if all of them are completely serious about what they're saying, but even if they're doing it just for entertainment, you know, a lot of people don't know that. And they take you seriously and they carry this out into society. And as I was stating before, I personally feel that that is why within a lot of these situations where you see Black women being harmed out in public, and you'll have a group of men standing around and recording the situation instead of stepping in and diffusing the situation, and even in some cases, you know, providing some level of protection for the women. A lot of times you don't see that because some of them are sitting up here watching YouTube videos or, you know, on other social media platforms, and they're listening to people spew very disrespectful and destructive rhetoric about the women and girls in the community. And that makes them feel as if, you know, the women are their enemies. And, you know, before when I've made other videos about Black women needing more protection in the community, I took a lot of heat for that video. You know, I had a lot of mean and rude comments up under that video from men within the community that were saying that they're not going to protect women because the women are not worthy of protection. And, you know, I really wanted to know where a lot of those mindsets were coming from. And when I sat back and I thought about it, I said there's so many YouTube influencers and people with public platforms that are pushing out these nasty and mean and shameful, you know, and very, very shameful concepts on who Black women are and how they should be treated. And you have people absorbing this information and they're carrying it out into society, which is very, very damaging. And I don't think that people actually take the time to take into consideration how, you know, them voicing a nasty opinion about someone in a very public setting could influence, you know, the masses of people. So, you know, like I was saying, I have a passion to see us do better. I have a passion to see us win. I want us to win. I know our potential. You know, I put a lot of my time and my effort into trying to spread as many positive messages as I possibly can about the women, men, and children within the community. I really, really want for us to do better. And that is why I continuously stress the issue of us interacting with one another in a much more positive way, by us sitting down and thinking to ourselves within our personal time how we're going to do better about the way we conduct ourselves among each other. And like I said, we really really need to take into consideration having a code of conduct for our community and live by this code as a way of life, because there's no one out there that is going to solve the problems of our community the ways that we can. I feel that it behooves all of us to take a vested interest in shifting the way that we see ourselves. We can't identify ourselves as these derogatory things and expect to be seen a certain way to the rest of the world. And it's not something that we need to do to try to impress other people. It's something that we need to do for ourselves. I personally feel that is something that is good for our minds. It is something that is good for our bodies and our spirits to be, living within positive energy more so than negative energy. I feel that we definitely should be in a situation where we're spending a lot of our time focusing on the things that are going to uplift each other, more so than focusing on the things that are going to tear each other down. Because truth be told, I see people gravitating toward negativity much faster than they gravitate toward positivity. And I was telling someone the other day, you know, um, I'm very, very grateful for all of my YouTube subscribers. I'm very grateful that people take the time out of their lives to listen to the messages that I'm putting out here to the public that I feel will, add something positive to our community. My channel has been up for roughly about 3 months now. And like I said, I'm very, very grateful for all of my subscribers. And I'm very humbled by everyone that watches the live streams and that contributes something to the conversation, that adds something of value, shares their opinion, shares the videos, and engages with me. But I was telling someone, like, I personally feel that if I was propagating just complete debauchery and ignorance, that my channel would be flooding with subscribers. And that's very heartbreaking because we are not in a position, especially right now, with all the outside attacks that are coming toward our community. We are in no way, shape, or form in a position to be playing so much, to be engaging in so much destructive behavior. We're honestly at critical mass at this point. We're getting to the point where at some point, for a lot of us, unfortunately, the situation is going to be so dire that in many ways is going to be beyond repair. And that is something that, I'm really, really trying to prevent from happening. I will continue until my last breath to speak power, to speak upliftment, to speak enlightenment into our community. Because unlike some people who propagate, and make it seem as if they genuinely care for the community, I'm not one of those people. I'm very, very pure and genuine in my messages. I'm very, very pure and genuine in what I say, and I mean it when I say that I want us to win overall, and I want it to be a eternal win. I don't want it to be a short-term win. I don't want it to be, a win that's going to be here for a season. I want it to be something that is going to be the new normal for us. And that new normal that I want to be for us is positivity, upliftment, and just basically changing the way that many of us see ourselves. Because, like I said, there's going to come a time when the situation is going to be so, so dire that we may not, people such as myself and others, we may not even be in a position where we can continue to, try to drill these messages into the community that we need a change and we need it relatively quickly. In the chat, Miss Arquay says, of course it would. That's the world we live in. People love mess. And I believe she's responding to my comment that I said about, if I was up here promoting ignorance, that the channel would be a lot bigger channel. And I'm not saying that to try to wag my finger at anybody, because honestly, I really, really do want grassroots subscribers. I really, really want people to subscribe to the channel that's going to get something from it. I don't want people to subscribe to the channel who's, really not serious about uplifting the community. I'm not deterring any subscribers, but I really, really enjoy the fact that I have quality subscribers, more so than quantity, because a lot of people, excuse me, looking into something that is not, and they're not really taking it seriously, that's a lose-lose situation all around. But that's just my observation, that I see a lot of these other channels that engage in a lot of gossip and a lot of things that are very, very entertaining, but they don't really provide any substance for us. And I'm not saying that we're supposed to just saturate ourselves with one message, but it would be very, very it would be very smart of us to have versatility into what it is that we're listening to and what it is that we are embedding into our minds. I think that that will be very helpful to us to have a variety of messages, and kind of, if we could spend more of our time looking into positive and uplifting messages that is going to provide substance for the community. So, that is basically all that I wanted to discuss tonight. And like I said, I wanted to have this conversation because I see a lot of these things going on in the community. I do spend a lot of time observing our community because, like I said, I have a vested interest in seeing us do better. I have a vested interest in us winning. That is one of my primary goals in life, is to actually hopefully be able to live to see the day where we are the power, we are the powerful and mighty race that we are, and that being something that is displayed to the entire world. So, like I said, this is not a sermon. This is not to preach to anyone. This is just a very humble and honest conversation that I wanted to have. This is me with a genuine concern for our people and for our community. And, as I was saying, a lot of us that put our faces out here and we talk about things that are not the most popular in the community, we do it because we care. Because honestly, if we wanted to use YouTube to spread messages that are just, strictly for entertainment and not really providing anything that can, provide substance to the community, then we probably could have a very lucrative YouTube career. But, for those of us that want to use this platform to, to do something that will be very, very beneficial to the community, I want to encourage you that no matter how discouraged you may get, no matter how you may feel that people aren't listening, there are people that are listening, and, just continue to do what it is that you're doing, because ultimately I do feel that the day is going to come where positivity is the norm for our community, where empowerment is the norm for our community. And that is what I really do see um, coming to the forefront for us. Um, Carbon Matter says mess is entertainment. And most mess is negative. Lower brain stuff is no good. That is very, very true. A lot of the negative stuff is very entertaining. And I like to be entertained as well. But as I said before, entertainment doesn't have to come in the form of negativity. There's a lot of entertaining things that can be put on display that promote positivity. As I was saying, in the beginning of the live stream, for many, many generations, people enjoyed music without so much of the violent rhetoric within the music. And artists had very, very lucrative careers. It's only been for roughly about the past 3 or 4 decades that we have been seeing all these destructive lyrics within music. So for people who want to get into the entertainment industry, don't fall into the trap and don't believe that you have to promote violence against your people, or you have to promote some type of negativity, um, as a means to have a career, because you don't have to do that. And that's pretty much all that I wanted to say. Give me one moment. I'm sorry, I have a call coming in. I don't know who that was trying to call in. If you want to try and call in again before I end the live stream, the call dropped. So if you want to go ahead and call in, please do call back in before I end the live. Carbon and Matter says, I pray your message comes to pass, Shelly. Yes, I very, very much so hope that my message comes to pass, Carbon and Matter. And like I was saying, I strongly feel that positivity will begin to be the new normal for us. I'm very optimistic about that. I'm very, very hopeful. And I have faith in us. And that is why I continue to do this, no matter how hard it may seem sometimes, because like I said, when you're spreading these types of messages to the community, it sometimes it can be very discouraging, because you feel like people would rather engage. Give me 1 second. The caller's calling back in. Hey, Miss Arquay. Thank you for calling.
Hey, no problem. I just want to say a few things about the topics that we were discussing tonight. The first thing was I wanted to talk about Black men, because when you were speaking, it made me think about a live that I listened to the other day, and the young lady who I was listening to was on YouTube. She was saying how much power it is in just being a man, and how men can set a tone for things to go a certain way, or just to straighten a situation out, or even to calm a situation down. And when she was talking about that, it brought me back to some years ago. I remember being at like a little league football game, and me and a young lady had gotten into it because I didn't like. She jumped into a conversation that I was having, and so me and her started going back and forth. And there was a guy there, and all he had to do was just raise his voice, and all he said was, "Hey, this is for the kids." And it was like just like that. Both of us got quiet, and that was that. Everything was dropped just like that. And so I just feel like that if we were able to have a situation where Black men will come together and, just set a tone for how we should be. I feel like a lot of these men don't know the capacity that they have to be leaders and, to really start something and to really be, front runners in a movement for us to do better. But a lot of things are tied into that, and it does have a lot to do with influence, just like the influences that you were talking about, such as, the music. And I think that music does play a big part because, kids, they go to school, they, certain things are going to be cool to them. A lot of these kids are not individuals. A lot of these kids are followers. They're going to do whatever it is that's cool to do. A lot of them hate to deviate from what's considered the norm.
Right.
So if I'm listening to whatever music and they're talking about killing, they're talking about shooting, they're talking about drugs, this is what's being glorified. So it doesn't matter if I have a mother at home that's telling me that this is not the way to go. If I have a father at home that tells me, you got to stay out of trouble. And this is what everybody is focused on, and this is what I'm thinking I should be focused on too. It's just not going to work. I just feel like we don't have a lot of things to combat that mentality.
Right.
Even back in the day, like I can remember coming up, and I can remember there being such things as mentor programs.
Mm-hmm.
I called around the other day because I feel like that I want to have someone for my son to be able to look up to, to be able to talk to, just a man that's a positive figure in the community. And I called the Boys and Girls Club, and I said, well, do y'all have a mentorship program? She was like, no.
Wow.
And so I said, well, what do you do there? And she's like, oh, well, we're just a place for the kids to come after school to play. And don't get me wrong, that's all fine and well to have a place for kids to come and play, kids to do their homework and things like that. But for some reason, in my thinking, I just thought that Boys and Girls Club, that was a place where I would be able to find a mentor for my son.
Right.
But she told me there was none. So then I even went further and I said, well, do you know anywhere in the area that does have something like that? And she was like, no. And you would just think that a place that's there for the community, placed in the community is going to have something like that. Where are our resources so that we can have figures? Because some people might not be comfortable with their parents. Some kids might not be comfortable with their parents, for whatever reason. And sometimes it takes people outside the household to really be able to get through to the kids. Different influences come from different places, So it's just sad that you can't even find something like that. And then, you were talking about just the Black men just downing, Black women, and things like that. And I remember the first time I heard a particular YouTuber. You don't use any names, so I'm not going to use any names. But I remember the first time that I heard a particular YouTuber, and I was in complete shock. And I shared the video with like 5 of my girlfriends, and I was surprised to know that they weren't surprised to hear the type of things that he was saying as far as Black women wearing weed, Black women ghetto, trash, all these types of things. And then, you have those who, and I don't have any problem with any type of interracial dating, any type of mixing. I don't have a problem with any of that stuff because I feel like people can date who they love. But I do have a problem when it comes to a situation of viewing something other than a Black woman as being better.
Right.
And I feel like a lot of that comes into play when you have men that start speaking negatively about Black women and then hit us up against other women to say why we are less than. So I just feel like, there's a lot of things that need to be combated when it comes to, our community and upliftment. And I really believe that it starts with black men and them setting a standard and them setting a tone for us. Even though I do feel like black women come with a lot of strength and I do feel like we can lead in a lot of capacity, I do feel like we need strong black men in order to propel us, to greater heights. I feel like if we have the men, frontlining a movement, that we can be so much more powerful. But again, I feel like they are ones who also fall victim to, glorifying the thug life, glorifying the things that come with it, fast money, a perception of them being, hard or untouchable or whatever it is that, they feel like comes with their lifestyle. And then, and which this ties into it too when you were speaking about the money situation. I can remember at some point in time, and I think my son was probably like 5 years old, so it's been a while ago now. But at some point in time, he just all of a sudden started talking about money a lot. And that was at like 5 years old,
Wow.
And he has never wanted for anything. No, we're not, dripping in this and that, or whatever. We're not living lavish, but these have always been met, and things like that. And so I remember him telling me, "Oh, when I get older, I want to have a lot of money."
Oh.
And with him being the age that he was, 5 years old, talking like that, and I'm just like, where did this come from? Who has he been hanging around? Where could this be coming from? And I literally had no idea because I have never glorified money in that way, and I have never spoken about money in that way,
right,
or whatever. So I never, and to this day, I don't know where the influence came from, but it's stuck.
Right.
It's still there. It's still, money this and money that, and one day I said, I don't understand where this obsession with the money, comes from. So, well, I think it's good to be obsessed with the money. I think it's good to want money. And, that's when you come in with the, okay, money doesn't solve problems. Money can only take you so far. Money doesn't make people happy, and it's just the whole thing of all people seem to see is, a car like this, or I can get this, or I can get that. Most of the material things, superficial things, and it's just so ironic to me because I've always been a person that has more so, stress education or, just being productive in general, even if it's not, through education or, having a trade or something like that. So for me to have been, I pretty much have been in school most of his life, so for him to, and he does talk about like, going to school and things like that, but more than anything, I hear just like this love for money. So, like I said, I never knew where it came from. It never left. So that is something that's like a big thing, in our community where it is glorified. Thug life is glorified, money is glorified. Something has to happen. I don't have any answers for it. And the last thing I'm going to touch on that you spoke about is just, about your channel and people glorifying massive things like and don't get me wrong because I watch a lot of YouTube. And 90% of the YouTube that I watch is mess. However, I also do enjoy people talking about serious topics, and I do know an important discussion, when I hear one, and I am able to switch and listen to something different and broaden my horizons and things like that, And channel where you're trying to do something positive. I admire that. You know, there's not a lot of people who are doing that. You know, there's tons of makeup channels. There's tons of, you know, talking about reality TV, you know, and this and that and that and this. And I feel like channels like yours are necessary. You know, I think it's fine for us to have that entertainment and then also to be able to discuss the serious topics, serious subjects, especially involving our community and uplifting. And you mentioned that if you had content that was salacious, you know, and things like that, then people will probably be coming to the channel. And, you know, I believe that to be a fact. I even think about doing a channel sometimes because I'm an author and I feel like, you know, we don't have people they read, but people don't seem to read, you know, the way they used to. And I play with the idea sometimes, and I'm like, well, you know, people don't really read like that anymore, or people probably won't be interested. But I think that, you know, you saying that no matter how big or how small your audience is, you're going to get your message across. That's very motivating, you know, to anybody who might be thinking about doing anything, whether it's YouTube or anything outside of YouTube. Just knowing that, hey, even if I just touch a small amount of people, I feel like my job is done. So I commend you for that.
Thank you so much for calling, Miss Arquay. You're so supportive. I always see you commenting, and you know, like I said, I'm so grateful for all of my subscribers. And you know, like I said, sometimes it can get kind of discouraging when you feel when you just see all the potential that our community has, and you see people engaging in things that you feel is destructive. But the most important thing, I honestly do feel that balance is necessary, because sometimes we have to, you know, we have to break away from certain things, because as I was saying in the beginning of the video, you know, this weekend I plan to kind of unwind. I plan to spend some time with my family and relax, because you know, one thing about delving into the serious topics is that it can get very mentally overwhelming. So sometimes you do have to, you know, watch something entertaining, or, you know, I'm not, like I said, I'm not wagging my finger at anybody for wanting to be entertained and wanting to enjoy themselves. But the point that I'm making is that I feel like it's an oversaturation of foolishness. And, you know, if there's no balance, then there's only one path you're going to lead to, and that's destruction. So, you know, I really appreciate you calling, and I appreciate, you know, you being a subscriber on my channel. And I think that you really made a lot of valid points. And you mentioned that you're an author, so if you could put in the chat, you know, where we can find your work, that would be great. And you know, you also stated that you wanted to start a channel, and I really feel that you should, because I wanted to start a channel for a while, and you know, it came to a point where my husband was just like, "Okay, you're starting this channel," because I was talking about it, and he was basically like, "Don't talk about it, be about it. You know, you want to do something, you need to get out there and do it." And you know, if you feel like you have something positive to bring to the community, you know, even if it is entertaining, that's fine. My whole thing is that we don't have to be bored to death, but we can entertain ourselves in a way that is not destructive to ourselves. So, you know, I just really am very happy that people are listening and that people have something to add to the conversation. And I really, really want to thank you for calling, and I appreciate it.
No problem. And I will do that. My books are available on Amazon. And even if you don't get it, I do want you to, you know, how the Kindle version sometimes will allow you to like read like a little bit, and then you like kind of like a teaser.
Mm-hmm.
So if you would just do that for me, I just want you to see just the first couple of pages of it, and then you know, let me know next time when we get on next time we get on this live chat, let me know if you saw it. On this particular book, I'm gonna put it in the chat.
Okay, no problem. And maybe we can collab on something. I'm a writer too. I'm probably gonna. I published a book a while back, and I'm thinking heavily about actually republishing it. So I really want to see your work, and I'll share it with as many people as I can get it to.
Okay, it's definitely fiction, so it's not anything on any type of serious topics or anything like that. So,
well, something, my book is fiction as well. I wrote it on more so of a real world perspective, but it's not it's not like it's not a nonfiction, but it does have a real world feel to it. But yeah, I'm really interested in seeing your work, and so please put that link in the chat so I can share it. And I really want to thank you for calling in. I'm so glad to hear from you, because you're always communicating and you're always sharing in the chat, and it's just a blessing to be able to talk to you.
Oh, well, I thank you, and you have a good night.
Thank you. Thanks for calling.
You're welcome.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Okay, guys, I'm so glad that Miss Arquay called in. She always has something positive to add to the conversation. I wasn't really looking at the chat, but Carbon and Matter says, Miss Arquay, I agree with you about the sound of Black man's voice. That is why gangster rap was created, coming out of the mouths of young Black men. Totally negative, pure poison with a beat. I completely agree with that. And that's why I often and always plead with the men of the community to please stand up and please take your place. No matter what people try to tell you, contrary to popular belief, Black women are, we're looking to you for support. We're looking to you for a level of leadership. And things are not always going to be the best between us, but we need each other. And I think that that's something that we need to take into serious consideration, that we got to stop looking at the negatives and the things that we don't like about one another. And we need to really start focusing more on the positive, because at the end of the day, we are literally all we have. And, all this bickering and this infighting and all the things that we're doing to contribute to the demise of our community, it is very destructive and it's very, very hurtful. So I'm just really, I'm really looking forward to continuing these conversations. And like I said, I'm going to continue to do what I'm doing no matter what, because I feel that, eventually we are going to see a complete 360 in our community, and the lives that we want and everything that we have been waiting for many, many generations, we are going to see it come to pass. And I really do believe that we are going to see it come to pass within our lifetime if we continue to strive for it and we do the best that we can to get there. Miss Arquay says, did the link come up? No, I don't see the link. I'm going to scroll down. No, I don't see it. So if you could go ahead and try to post it again. And if you're having difficulty, you can email it to me. I'll share it on my Facebook, on my Twitter, and everywhere else. You can email it to me if you're having difficulty. My email is shellyspeakstruth@gmail.com. Shellyspeakstruth@gmail.com. And if you want to, if you want to go ahead and send it to me on Twitter, that's fine as well. Yeah, I don't, something, I really don't know what's going on with YouTube lately. A lot of people are complaining, about YouTube, and The only reason that I use YouTube is because YouTube obviously is the biggest, public platform out here to have conversations. But, YouTube can be kind of problematic sometimes with them blocking any and everything. A lot of people are doing the best they can to go around these algorithms because it's like, I don't know why, for some reason, YouTube just doesn't want certain content to be put out there, and it's very frustrating. But like I said, I'm gonna keep doing what I'm doing. I'm not going to let anything deter me. I'm not going to stop. And as I was stating before, I appreciate all of my subscribers. I'm very, very humbled and grateful for you all. And I'm very happy that, Ms. Arquay called in and shared those very, very valid points with us, as always. So I'm going to go ahead and end it here. If you guys want to follow me on Twitter, you can find me at Shelly Speaks One on Twitter, Facebook, Shelly Speaks. And you can also email me with anything that you feel like we should be talking about. That's shellyspeakstruth@gmail.com. Again, thank you for joining the conversation tonight, and I hope everyone enjoys the rest of their week and their holiday. Good night.